15 years ago, I divorced my husband after discovering his affair with a childhood friend, with whom he even had a child. The affair partner harassed me to the point of quitting my job. At my lowest, my current husband rescued me, and we built a happy, peaceful home. However, my tranquility was short-lived. Recently, I encountered my ex-husband for the first time in 15 years.
You must still be single, right? Who'd marry a barren woman like you?
You still can't say anything nice, can you?
My son is cute, just like his mom.
Looking down at me with a smug smile, my ex-husband boasted about his child. I replied, "Oh really? What a cute child. Speaking of which, let me introduce you to my children as well." My introduction of my son left my ex-husband stunned and trembling. I'm Caroline Jones, 38 years old. I'm living with my 13-year-old son, Liam, my 11-year-old daughter, Emma, and my husband, Ethan, who is the same age as me. Liam, in his first year of middle school, is right in the thick of his rebellious phase. Lately, he's been quite cheeky and a handful, but when he really doesn't listen, my husband Ethan steps in and sets him straight. Emma, on the other hand, is all about makeup and fashion. As the youngest and a girl, she's quite adept at getting her way. Liam, who adores his younger sister Emma, quickly panics when she playfully threatens, "If you're not nice to Mom, I'll start disliking you, big brother." He hurriedly apologizes, sorry. "Look, I'll be nice to Mom, okay?" He's a straightforward and easily understood charmer, always the one to liven up any situation. I lead a bustling yet joyful life. But there's a detail many are unaware of. I'm a divorcee, now in my second marriage. I ended up divorcing due to my ex-husband's despicable betrayal. 15 years ago, my ex-husband, whom I'll call Michael, was my senior at the university. We had many mutual friends and were blessed with good wishes from everyone around us, so everything seemed smooth and promising. Early in our marriage, we often talked about how much we wanted kids, saying things like, "I really want a child soon, and it would be nice to have matching outfits when we have kids." Both of us were really looking forward to having children. However, reality didn't go as smoothly, and even after a year had passed, we still weren't blessed with a child. Every month, the arrival of my period led to a bit of friction in our marriage. Neither my husband or I thought it was good, so we had several discussions and even paid for expensive treatments to find the cause of our infertility. However, being told there was nothing abnormal, we didn't make any progress in improving our marital relationship. Initially, my husband was encouraging and cooperative. However, as time passed without us having children, he seemed to become irritated and his attitude towards me started to change. When will I ever become a father?" he said loudly, throwing a sarcastic remark. His comments implied that he believes I'm the reason we can't have children. He stopped being cooperative with household chores, leaving everything to me: cooking, washing dishes, laundry, and cleaning. When I asked, "Hey, why did you suddenly stop helping with the housework? You used to do it before," he replied, "Because you're infertile. If you don't do the housework, you're not fulfilling your role as a woman, making our marriage pointless." Afterward, my husband's words became increasingly barbed.
My sister and her husband are already expecting their second child. Isn't that great? They're on their second, and we haven't even had our first yet.
My husband glared at me with a harsh look, scorning and mocking me.
If you had a normal body, I would have been a father long ago.
How can you say I'm not normal when we don't even know the cause yet? But my husband said, it's always the woman's fault for infertility. Don't you know that? If I had known you were infertile, I would have never married you. You should feel a bit guilty. His words pierced my heart like sharp thorns. I also began receiving calls from my in-laws, eagerly saying, we can't wait to see a grandchild. At first, I brushed it off, saying, it's only been a year, and having a baby is a blessing. However, this seemed to backfire. My mother-in-law's attitude became harsher, accusing me, you're useless for not being able to bear children. Your sister-in-law did it so quickly. You're the only defective one. This daily pressure weighed heavily on me. One day, my best friend Isabella invited me out for drinks after a long time. Michael, my ex-husband, had been busy with work and did a lot of overtime, so he was rarely home. That's when Isabella shared some shocking news with me.
I've been wanting to see you for so long. I have something important to talk to you about, Caroline.
I've missed you too, so what's on your mind?
Caroline, do you remember Leah?
Leo was Michael's childhood friend. They lived near each other when they were young, and their parents were close. Leah attended the same university as us and now works at the same company as me. Leah, the daughter of my company's CEO, got her job through family connections. We weren't close in college since we were in different clubs and departments, and even at work, we hardly interacted being in separate divisions. Once, my husband introduced me just once to Leah, saying, she's my girlfriend, so please get along with her. But Leah, perhaps not wanting to lose her childhood friend Michael, glared at me with sharp eyes. Thinking she disliked me, I tried to avoid her as much as possible. Leah, tall and strikingly beautiful, was so popular in college that she participated in beauty pageants. Being a CEO's daughter and a beauty made her somewhat of a celebrity at our office. Leah, oh, Michael's childhood friend, right? Yeah, I know her. She's beautiful. We're in the same company but hardly interact. What about her?
Well, it's hard to say, but I think your husband and Leah are having an affair.
What? I was utterly shocked by Isabella's unexpected warning.
I saw them recently. They were walking hand in hand, not just like friends.
No way.
I think you should check it out. If you need to talk, just call me, okay?
Thank you for telling me. Michael was cheating. I had suspected it. His behavior towards me was awful, always coming home late, claiming he had to work overtime. He was never around on weekends, always busy with client entertainment. I had a sneaking suspicion, but I was pretending not to notice. That day, after parting with Isabella, I headed straight to a detective agency. The reason was, of course, to gather evidence of my husband's infidelity. Within a week, they had all the evidence, but I wasn't ready to file for divorce. No matter how terrible he was the man I once vowed to spend my life with. I couldn't decide right away. A few days later, I came home to find Michael, who usually came home late, sitting at the dinner table. Oh, you're home.
Yeah.
I thought you'd be late again today. I tried to sound sarcastic on purpose.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I need to talk to you.
Having heard about the affair from Isabella, I braced myself for bad news.
I want a divorce.
What? So that's how it's going to be. I realized he wasn't just fooling around with Leah. He was serious about her.
Leah is pregnant. I'm going to marry her.
Leah, your childhood friend. You said she was just a friend. and now she's pregnant. You were having an affair.
Don't call it an affair. Haha. Makes me sound like a jerk. Can't help it, right? Leah can get pregnant. She's beautiful, and there's no reason for me to choose you over her.
Michael's shameless attitude stunned me. He didn't think he did anything wrong. I was speechless. Seeing me silent, Michael smirked and said,
My mom has been nagging me to divorce you. She says Leah is prettier, kinder, and can bear children. She always liked Leah better. This will make her happy.
I knew they always preferred Leah. Tears welled up in my eyes.
Well, I've packed my stuff. Gotta get back to Leah and her upcoming baby. Haha.
With that, Michael left the house. I didn't have the strength to stop him. Later, a one-sided divorce paper arrived. A woman's handwriting was on a note tucked inside.
Please divorce my husband soon.
Seeing the contradictory words, I felt a question mark floating above my head. I really wanted to retort, no, it was you who took my husband away. Seeing those words, I snapped back to reality. I was stuck with questions on my head. Why am I being blamed? I can't just silently accept this divorce. Determined, I took the evidence I had gathered from the detective agency and filed for divorce mediation. A few days after filing, I received a call from an unknown number. Wondering who it could be, I answered the phone to hear a woman's voice screaming, "What do you think you're doing? Why did you start a lawsuit?" It was Leah, Michael's mistress. Well, it's only natural, isn't it? I know all about your inappropriate behavior. It's only right that I demand compensation.
Compensation? I'm pregnant. How can you be so cruel at a time when I need money for the baby?
Who's being cruel here? You're the one who got involved with a married man.
You're the one who's infertile, you horrible woman.
Her shrieking voice hurt my ears. Anyway, I plan to discuss the divorce, including compensation, in an official setting. Let's talk about it then. I said that and hung up the phone. During the mediation, given the ample evidence, Michael and Leah's relationship was recognized as infidelity. Michael tried to blame my infertility, but the court dismissed his claim as unreasonable since there was no conclusive evidence of my infertility within just a year of marriage. From Michael, I received a lump sum payment of $20,000 as alimony, and from Leah, I received $10,000. I didn't want to drag out any financial ties with them. Thus, our divorce was finalized. However, my ordeal didn't end there. Since Michael, Leah, and I went to the same university, the affair became a topic among many friends. According to a close friend, the rumor was that I had hidden my infertility and married Michael. Some even sympathized with Michael and Leah. That's terrible. Worse still, since Leah and I worked in the same company, rumors spread at work too. Everyone sided with the beautiful and influential company president's daughter, Leah, who made herself look like a victim, her eyes brimming with tears. Caroline is such a horrible person, demanding alimony when I'm about to have a baby. She even hid her infertility. She sobbed, seeking sympathy. At first, I tried to ignore it, but since Leah was the president's daughter, my bosses scolded me, saying, "Don't treat Leah badly." No matter how hard I worked, I was continually removed from major projects. Eventually, I was pushed to the point of resigning. While looking for a new job, I was headhunted by another company. "We need someone as diligent and capable as you," they said. In this new workplace, I thrived beyond my expectations. My boss really took the time to see each employee as an individual. Unlike my previous company, there was absolutely no culture of favoritism towards the boss's daughter or nepotism. I found myself drawn to such a wonderful boss. And that person turned out to be my current husband, Ethan. Ethan supported me when I was at my lowest after the cruel breakup with Michael. After several dinners together, we gradually began to talk about not just work but also personal matters, and this naturally developed into a romantic relationship. Our relationship was going well, and thankfully, Ethan proposed to me. However, still haunted by my past, I confessed my fears of infertility to him. Then Ethan looked at me with sincere eyes and said, "Of course, I'd be happy if we have children in the future. But the most important thing is that I love you, Caroline. You mean everything to me. So, even if we can't have children, I'll always be by your side." Saying this, he gently hugged me. I was truly happy. I came to the realization that I wanted to spend my lifetime with this man and decided to marry Ethan. Shortly after marrying Ethan, we welcomed our first child, a son named Liam. Not long after, our second child, a daughter named Emma, was born. Maybe the inability to conceive with Michael was a matter of timing or compatibility. Parenting is challenging, but we are living happily every day. One day, I was attending a friend's wedding. As the wedding reached its midpoint, with guests mingling and making their rounds of greetings, I stood up from my seat to head to the restroom. That's when, for the first time in 15 years, I spotted my ex-husband, the man who had left me. Yikes. Why is he here? My mind went blank for a moment. But then I remembered today's bride and groom were our university friends. It couldn't be helped that my ex-husband was there. I tried to ignore him and walk by without being noticed, but he loudly called out, "Hey!" He noticed me after all. Heck, what?
What do you mean, what? You're here too. Haven't seen you in a while. You've gained weight. Ha. Ha ha.
Michael, possibly drunk, was talking loudly and spitting while talking to me. "You haven't changed a bit." Still as sarcastic as ever, I added in my mind. Then my ex-husband called his family over. There were Leah and her son. Leah, seeing me, laughed and said,
Oh my, long time no see. Have you put on weight? Stress eating, maybe? Haha.
We've been through a lot. Ha ha. You're still infertile, right? No one would want you now. Ha ha.
I was so appalled by their rude behavior that I was at a loss for words. Suddenly, I noticed their son looking down, blushing with embarrassment. He had very handsome features.
Ah, I forgot to introduce him. This is my son. He looks cute like Leah, right?
Leah proudly boasted about her son.
He's handsome, smart, a real genius. Sorry, it seems like we're the only ones happy here. Haha.
The couple laughed at me, proudly showing off their son. However, their son had a distorted expression on his face, and that caught my attention a bit. It seems he's growing increasingly dissatisfied with his parents' attitude of scorning others right in front of him. I thought to myself, he must be a really kind child. But I had no time for them. Just as I was about to leave, Michael grabbed my arm tightly.
You divorced me because of infertility, and yet you still had the gall to take money from us.
Michael seemed to still hold a grudge about something that happened 15 years ago. If anyone should hold a grudge, it's me. Then Leah turned to me.
Yeah, you're infertile and single. Why do you need money? Families like us with children need it more. Give us back double the money you took back then.
I was stunned by their selfishness. Just then, Michael's son spoke up.
Single means unmarried, right? But she's wearing a wedding ring on her left hand.
Pointed out by Michael's son, Michael and Leah stared at my left ring finger.
You're married.
Everyone around was staring as Michael and Leah screamed loudly. I couldn't help but feel embarrassed. As I was wondering what to do, a familiar face suddenly appeared in my view.
Auntie and Uncle, you shouldn't be so loud at a celebration like this. It's bothering other people. Maybe you should be more considerate.
Mommy, who are these scary people?
Liam, Emma. Yes, my children, Liam and Emma, worried about me being late, had come to check on me. Emma always speaks her mind, but it was rare for Liam to speak so provocatively.
Mommy, you're late.
Mom, you have kids.
Yes, I do. Let me introduce them. This is my son, Liam, and my daughter, Emma. Michael was shocked to see the children of the woman he thought was infertile. Leah stared intently at my son. After a while, they began to speak in a muttering tone, with a voice that seemed strained and hoarse.
That uniform.
It seemed they were curious about my son's attire. Yes, he came straight from school with my husband, so he's still in his uniform.
Not that, I mean. That uniform, it's from that famous private middle school.
Oh, yes. Liam worked hard and wanted to try for it, so we let him take the exam. He passed and has been attending that private middle school since this year. Indeed, my son excelled in his studies and was attending a renowned school in the area.
No way. That can't be your son of all people.
My daughter, too. Next year, she plans to take the same school's exam.
Yeah, and you know, Liam is amazing. He won a violin contest.
Violin?
I thought I recognized this boy. He was on Evie recently.
You saw that? Yes, he's been getting quite a bit of media attention lately. He was coming back from violin practice today.
No, this can't be.
Leah and my ex-husband were amusingly speechless.
You were supposed to be infertile. How could you have children like this?
To the flustered Michael, I conveyed calmly. You both seem happy, and that's great. As you can see, I'm filled with happiness too. Please, let's not involve each other anymore. We have no relation to each other now. Just as I was about to leave with my kids, my husband, Ethan, arrived.
Hey, what's going on? The main event is about to restart.
Seeing my husband, Michael's face went pale.
Mr. Lopez, the president.
What?
Leah also turned pale, recognizing my husband.
Is your husband, by any chance, the young Mr. Lopez, who became the president of Resonance Inc. last year?
Indeed, my husband Ethan was the president of a parent company of Leah's father's firm. During my job search, I was approached by the parent company and made the switch. At the new job, I met my future husband, Ethan, who was already popular and skilled. Last year, Ethan was appointed as the president of the company, recommended by the then president.
I'm Lopez. Huck, what's with this atmosphere? What happened?
Sensing the uneasy atmosphere, my husband looked puzzled. And then my son, Liam, spoke up.
I heard these people calling Mom infertile and fat, so Emma and I came to help her out.
You heard that, huh? It seems like Liam and Emma overheard me being insulted by my ex-husband and his wife. That's why Liam spoke in such a manner earlier.
You guys are, wait, that.
Realizing the context, my husband's expression hardened. I heard rumors, but I didn't expect such a lack of decency. Then, Michael suddenly started making excuses to my husband.
No, I mean, Mr. Lopez, the president. There's no way I would speak ill of the wife of President Lopez. Right, Leah?
Why are you groveling to this woman's husband? I was the one who suffered because of her, getting in trouble with my father for having my money taken. I'll never forgive her.
Leah, think before you speak. If he dislikes us, our subcontracting company is finished.
As Michael started to flatter my husband and Leah protested, they began arguing. It's just unbelievable. Then their son, who had been silent, shouted out.
Let's stop this already. I've been listening, and it's terrible how Mom and Dad are talking about this lady. Calling her fat, infertile, and ridiculing her, and then demanding money back. It's embarrassing for me. And what's this about an affair? Am I a child born from an affair? Am I an unwanted child?
Hearing their son's tearful plea, Michael and Leah started to become visibly unsettled.
Well, it's not like that.
So.
I realized that the other attendees around us were staring at us. Finally noticing the stares from around us, she blushed deeply and looked down. Although I couldn't forgive Michael and Leah, I admired their son for his strong sense of justice and kindness. He had nothing to do with this. Thinking this, I hurriedly tried to back up their son. But before I could say anything, my husband spoke up.
Thank you for defending my wife from the insults. You really are a kind child.
He said, patting the boy's head. Continuing, I also spoke up with a smile. But maybe I am a bit chubby.
That's not true at all.
Well, actually, I'm pregnant. My belly has been growing. I said, stroking my belly. Actually, I was then pregnant with our third child. I was on maternity leave. To the child with tear-filled, reddened eyes, I said, your mom also nurtured you in her belly with great care. You're not an unwanted child. Your mom and dad love you and are proud of you, right? Saying this, I looked at Michael and Leah. The boy also asked them, really? They quickly nodded and said, yes, you're our pride. Yeah, you're very important to us. The boy immediately brightened up with a smile. Seeing him smile, I felt relieved.
Let's get back to our seats for now. It's a day of celebration.
Saying that, each family returned to their own seats. And so, the chaotic scene came to an end. The wedding concluded successfully, and as we headed to the station, Leah and Michael approached with their son, holding hands. Liam and Emma were protective of me, but my husband chuckled and calmed them down.
Sorry about that.
We're truly sorry. It's late, but we regret everything, including today. And thank you for earlier, for our son.
It was the first apology I had received from them in 15 years. Perhaps having a child had changed them a bit. I just laughed and said, really, after all this time? Well then. With just that one phrase, I turned my back on them and began to walk away. Liam offered to carry my bags and took the one with the maternity mark on it. Emma cheerfully said, "Here you go," and draped a coat over my shoulders. Despite their young age, they are thoughtfully looking out for me during my pregnancy.
All right, tonight's dinner will be Dad's homemade hamburgers, Liam and Emma's favorite.
Yay.
Thank you. I vowed to protect the smiles of my beloved family, moving away from the pains of the past.
Mom, check my bag. I couldn't go on the school trip I was so excited about.
About 14 minutes after seeing my daughter, Emily, off to her school trip, she unexpectedly returned home and burst into tears, saying that shortly after I sent Emily off on her school trip, I received a call from her class teacher. Being told it was an emergency, I was startled, thinking something might have happened to Emily. About 5 minutes after I got off the phone with her teacher, just as the teacher had said, Emily came back home. The reason Emily came back home was something in her backpack. When I checked, I found that her brand new change of clothes and other items were wet and discolored. I found out that my mother-in-law, Mary, had gone to the school and done something. Not to complain, but my relationship with Mary is bad, and she even disliked Emily, so there's no way she would have gone to see her granddaughter off. I immediately called Mary, furiously demanding an explanation. Then Mary said that it wasn't fair for only Emily, one of her 2 granddaughters, to go on the school trip. She thought it would be too sad for the other granddaughter who couldn't go. Mary justified her actions as delivering justice to Emily, insisted she did nothing wrong, and abruptly hung up the phone. Unable to contain my anger, I reported the incident to a certain person. As a result, Mary ended up provoking the wrath of that individual, leading to her own downfall. I am a housewife in my 30s. I have a daughter with my husband, who is in the same age group as me. Emily, who turned into a 6th grader this year, has been looking forward to her school trip for quite a while. Since kindergarten, Emily has been practicing rhythmic gymnastics, and sometimes she demonstrates her skills as an example during gymnastics in her physical education class. Emily, who once appeared in the local newspaper for participating in a competition, has become somewhat of a local celebrity. Once a year, there is a showcase in physical education class where each student presents his or her own creative gymnastics routine. When the time for the showcase arrives, it's so popular that students from other classes also come to watch. Despite her popularity, Emily has never been overconfident or boastful about it. Whenever asked for help, she willingly spends time with her friends, offering advice and assistance until they are satisfied. I'm grateful she has grown up to be such a considerate person. My husband and I married for love, but since the beginning of our marriage, it's been a series of never-ending problems. The issues aren't with my husband, but rather because of Mary's behavior. She believes I stole her precious son and has been causing trouble for me because of it. Initially, Mary, in exchange for accepting our marriage, demanded that we live with her in the family home as a condition. My husband had moved out of his family home to live alone when he went to college, and I was in a similar situation. Therefore, we had decided not to live with either set of parents, but to live on our own instead. Of course, we agreed that if either of our parents ever needed care or assistance due to health or other reasons, we would discuss and address the situation then. Given our perspective, we communicated that we couldn't immediately agree to the matter of living together. We could have declined right away, but we were concerned about upsetting Mary and worsening our relationship with her. Then, my father-in-law, who was present at the time, spoke up, saying that it would be too harsh to expect the young couple to live with the in-laws. He proposed that it would be better to let us live alone for a few years, offering us a lifeline in the situation. Taking advantage of that, my husband skillfully convinced Mary, and at that time, the discussion of living together was dropped. After we got married, Mary kept bringing up the idea of us living together. Usually, if a parent-in-law wants to live together, he or she at least tries to be pleasant to his or her daughter-in-law, but she was the opposite.
You're young and a housewife. Must be nice. When I was your age, I worked part-time to help with the finances. I bet you keep the house immaculate. Then what's this mess?
She would come over when my husband was away, find faults in everything, and leave after criticizing. When my husband was out on overnight business trips, she would stay over, claiming it was too dangerous to go back at night, forcing me to endure her endless sarcasm. I developed mild neurosis due to her excessive interference. When my husband realized it was because of her, he confronted her firmly, assuring me we would never live together. Thanks to my husband and father-in-law, they kept her at a distance, and I started to recover. Soon after, I found out I was pregnant. I was anxious about her meddling again, but she was preoccupied with my sister-in-law, Kate, who was also pregnant at the same time, and showed no interest in me. She ignored my pregnancy and birth, favoring Kate and giving her grand gifts, while barely acknowledging ours. Years went by peacefully. Our daughter grew up to be strong, honest, and full of justice. Mary believed that our not living with her precious son was my doing, that I had brainwashed him. As our daughter grew and resembled me more than my husband, at family gatherings, Mary would cold shoulder her. In contrast, she adored my niece, who looked just like Kate as a child. She would give gifts to my niece for Christmas, but not to Emily. My father-in-law would secretly give one to Emily, but if he's caught doing so, she would snatch it away, saying,
I won't give anything to the child of the woman who stole my son.
When confronted by my husband or father-in-law in front of the kids, she dramatically claimed we were all ganging up on her. Emily gradually realized she was disliked by her grandmother. But she never became resentful. I'm so grateful for how well she's grown up. Just before Emily's preschool graduation, Kate got divorced and took custody of her daughter. The divorced Kate, along with my niece, moved in with my in-laws. My niece then ended up in the same school district and elementary school as Emily. They were in the same grade. My niece and Emily are in different classes, yet my niece often comes to see Emily. She frequently borrows school supplies and personal items that each student is supposed to have. I realized this because Emily's stationery was running out unusually fast. I initially suspected it might be bullying, with her things being hidden or thrown away, but it wasn't the case. Naturally, if two people share something, it runs out faster. I was relieved to learn it wasn't bullying, but I couldn't shake off this nagging feeling. I wondered if this was also a form of harassment from Kate. Mary didn't like me and Emily, often making our lives difficult with her constant nagging and harassment. Especially after Kate got divorced and moved back in with my in-laws, there were frequent incidents that seemed like she was contacting me just to make snide remarks.
How can someone as impressive as you be my brother's wife? You'll definitely be dumped eventually.
Kate seems to think highly of herself as a capable woman. Despite her own failed marriage, she would go out of her way to tell me that I too would inevitably be left by my husband. As irritating as it was, I tried to ignore her, thinking she was just envious of our seemingly happy family. However, the thought of her extending her spiteful behavior towards Emily was something I didn't want to consider. I told myself that I might be reading too much into it. This decision of mine would unexpectedly lead to consequences, but that was something to unfold a bit later. Time passed, and Emily became a sixth grader. In the sixth grade, there's a school trip. Emily had always been excited about it, especially each time she brought her savings for the trip to school. Now that she had reached the grade when the trip would finally happen, we frequently discussed where they might go in our conversations as a family. When it came to my own school days and my husband's, our daughter became curious about our school trip experiences as soon as the schedule and location were decided. Once our daughter brought home a note from school asking each family to prepare for the upcoming school trip, she and I began to prepare little by little. While she was excited and upbeat, I felt a bit worried. Recently, there had been an incident in her class, and the parents of the children involved were called in. Emily often remarked, "Why are the boys in my class so foolish?" showing her concern about the misbehavior of some rambunctious boys. By sixth grade, it's common for girls to start showing physical changes, and some more developed girls even start wearing training bras around fourth or fifth grade. Emily, being an active gymnast, had a muscular build, so her chest area wasn't particularly mature. However, the school trip guide for parents mentioned being cautious about underwear, as the trip involved several nights' stay and girls would be in separate rooms from boys. It also advised that girls not used to wearing bras should start getting accustomed to them. The guide also contained information about menstruation. These letters from school would inevitably be read by curious children. It seems that some mischievous boys reacted to the words period and bra and started teasing girls who were more physically developed, or harassed them out of sheer curiosity. I had already talked to Emily about the changes her body would undergo as she grew older. Even before the school brought up the issue of underwear, her gymnastics club had discussed it, especially since gymnastics attire tends to be form-fitting, highlighting body lines. The club's discussions included care for girls as they approached puberty. So, I had already taught Emily about the individual differences in growth, and that it's wrong to tease others about their bodies. Emily, who has a strong sense of justice, defended the teased girls and called out the boys' bad behavior. One of the boys, whose father was a city council member, complained to his dad about a sassy girl standing up to the boys. This led to a major fuss at school, with the parents of the boys' friends demanding that the parents of the outspoken girls be called in. However, since there had already been issues with boys teasing physically developed girls, the parents' demands were not acknowledged. The parents of the teased girls even threatened to report the matter to the school board if it happened again, which led the school to adopt a stricter stance towards the boys and their parents. As a result, Emily became even more popular among the girls, seen as a brave and reliable ally. However, when out of their parents' sight, kids can sometimes commit acts that would put even adults to shame. I was really on edge about whether Emily would face any revenge from the boys' group she had a conflict with. Though the teachers, including the homeroom teacher, promised to keep an eye out, my worries didn't just disappear. Contrary to my anxiety, Emily seemed unconcerned, treating it as a thing of the past. We spread out the shopping for the field trip over several days. We couldn't do it on the days Emily had her rhythmic gymnastics classes. During one of these shopping trips, I unexpectedly ran into Kate. At first, I thought I could handle just Kate, but then Mary showed up from inside the store. They were shopping together, but Kate had left the store first out of boredom while Mary chatted with a salesperson. So I ran into Kate first, and shortly after, Mary joined us.
Good timing. I heard your daughter's a star in her rhythmic gymnastics class.
I don't want any favoritism towards my grandkids. Since your daughter attends that gymnastics club, I want both of my granddaughters to join.
But I'm a single mom, so naturally, you'll cover the fees.
She even demanded I do the driving. Why should I have to do all that? When I firmly refused, Mary accused Emily of bragging.
That cheeky daughter of yours must have bragged to her, who's in another class.
Don't look down on us just because I'm a single parent. Saying we can't afford extracurricular activities because we don't have a father figure belittles us.
I generally avoided any interaction with Mary and Kate. They demanded I pay the gymnastics fees and drive as compensation. Emily denied saying those things, but Mary yelled, "Children should not butt into conversations between adults." Emily, holding back her frustration, tightly gripped my hand. I couldn't let Emily endure this alone. I said we'd discuss it with my husband and decide. I trust Emily. She wouldn't say such things. I promised to speak with my niece to hear both sides. Announcing that we'd talk to my niece and make a decision, Mary and Kate seemed panicked at the prospect of my husband getting involved. Seizing the opportunity, we left. Once home, I hugged Emily. "I'm sorry for making you go through this," I repeated. She reassured me it wasn't my fault, but deep down, I knew my strained relationship with Mary was a factor. Even if it was caused by Mary's thoughtless words and actions. I briefed my husband when he got home. My husband informed my father-in-law about the situation, and it turned out that Mary and Kate, who were at their family home as well as his niece, were all concerned about what's happening. But I knew Mary and Kate wouldn't be easily deterred. Despite the difficulties, the day of the eagerly awaited school trip arrived. Despite checking everything the night before, I still asked Emily if she forgot anything. With a smile, Emily reassured me, "It's all good, Mom. We've checked everything together several times," and then she left the house with a light step. It's just about a 5-minute walk to the school. The kids were traveling by chartered bus, stopping at rest areas on the way. While doing household chores, I kept glancing at the clock, thinking she must be boarding the bus by now, right? It's almost time for them to leave on schedule. I just couldn't help but worry. I was reminiscing about how, when I was Emily's age and went on my school trip, my mother must have felt the same way after sending me off, oblivious as I was, having fun with my friends. Just as I was lost in these thoughts, the house phone rang at an unusual time. Just 14 minutes after Emily left, I received an unexpected call from her teacher. When I was told something unexpected had happened, my heart raced, fearing Emily might have been in an accident. But as I listened to her teacher's relatively calm voice, I began to understand the situation. Emily had to come back home due to some circumstances. if I could quickly replace some items in her bag and drive her to a specified station, she could catch up with the chartered bus. After thanking the teacher for their thoughtful consideration and hanging up, I quickly found suitable replacements for the items she was supposed to take on the trip. As I was in the middle of changing clothes, Emily returned home, crying. I knew some of the details from the teacher, but seeing Emily's state was different from what I had been told. Just 14 minutes earlier, she had left the house looking bright and energetic. The only difference now was her tears instead of a smile. I asked her what happened, and she told me to look inside her backpack. When I checked, I found the interior slightly damp, though not enough to seep through to the exterior. The backpack, originally waterproof, had been further sprayed inside by my husband, anticipating any unforeseen events. Fortunately, only the inside of the backpack was wet, as the waterproofing held up, affecting only the items that weren't waterproof. Emily, crying, told me that Mary had come to see off her cousin and had poured juice into her backpack. Aware that her own grandmother didn't like her, Emily assumed she had come to see off her cousin, not her. So, engrossed in conversation with her friends from the same group, she didn't notice Mary standing behind her. It was her friend who was talking to her that noticed and said, "Hey, there's an unknown old lady touching your backpack." By the time she turned around, something had already been put in, and when she checked, she found the inside of her backpack was wet. Emily, understandably upset, confronted Mary, but she dismissed it as an accidental spill and left. I reassured Emily, telling her I would speak to Mary and encourage her to reset her mood and enjoy the school trip. I prepared a smaller backpack I normally use, filling it with substitutes for the original items and new spare clothes we had bought as reserves. Emily, regaining her spirits, helped me pack quickly, and we hurried to the car to drive to the designated station. We arrived before the bus, which had been caught in a bit of traffic. The bus made a special stop just for her, which we were grateful for. Emily boarded the bus, was greeted by her friends, and waved at me multiple times as she set off on the school trip. After watching the bus Emily was on disappear from view, I returned home, and before finishing up the remaining household chores, I called Mary to protest. I knew getting emotional would play into her hands, so I had to stay calm and composed while making my protest. Before picking up the receiver, I took several deep breaths. As I called her, Mary answered after a couple of rings. I calmly demanded an explanation for her actions with Emily's backpack.
She's one of my 2 granddaughters, and it just seemed so unfair for only one to go on the trip. I thought you wouldn't listen to anything I said, so I wet the items in her backpack to prevent her from going. Isn't it your lack of concern to blame here? Shouldn't you realize that?
What was this woman saying? That was my reaction upon hearing Mary's excuse. But as infuriating as it was, I knew calling her names would mean losing the argument. I tried to stay calm and counter her words. But then she abruptly ended the call, claiming she had to go out. I wasn't even aware that my niece couldn't go on the school trip. I generally avoided any interaction with Mary and Kate. How could I have known? Moreover, Emily hadn't mentioned anything about her cousin not being able to go. There was no information about any illness or injury, and even though my relationship with Kate wasn't good, if my niece had been sick or injured, my husband would have heard about it. My husband would have surely shared such information with me, at least for the sake of keeping me informed. The anger inside me was boiling, and just then my niece called. She confessed to feeling envious after seeing how excited Emily was about the trip. I generally avoided any interaction with Mary and Kate. However, she was told by her mother that she couldn't go because they hadn't made any payments for the trip. Mary, upon hearing this, decided that since my niece couldn't go, it would only be fair if Emily also had a painful experience. She had said this the night before, but my niece never thought she'd actually prevent her from going. My niece apologized to me. It turned out she didn't know they weren't making payments. Kate had told her that the trip was fully paid for and that she didn't have to worry about anything. So my niece believed what she was told. But as the school trip drew near, she was confronted with the fact that no payment had been made. What a cruel thing for Kate to do. There were children in Emily's class who, for various reasons, couldn't attend the trip. When I was a child, there were also kids who didn't participate in school events due to illness or religious reasons. I had told Emily not to ask such children why they weren't going. I assume my niece's teacher, trying to be considerate, didn't pursue the unpaid fees for the school trip. If they had, my niece would have questioned it, and my father-in-law, who lives with them, would have noticed. I couldn't forgive Kate for imposing such a burden on her child. I had been avoiding them, but this time I couldn't just let it go. I decided to take action, not just for my niece, who had apologized to me, but also to give them a piece of my mind. I reassured my niece that it wasn't her fault and that this was an adult problem. That evening, when my husband came home from work, I explained everything that had happened. He immediately contacted my father-in-law, and we shared the whole story. My father-in-law, still working and in his late 50s, regretted not noticing the issue with the trip and apologized. He was quite shocked to learn that no payments had been made for the school trip. My husband was furious that Mary had gone to such lengths to harass our daughter at school. He apologized to me, regretting that he could have adjusted his schedule to drop our daughter off at school, thinking that if he had been there for the send-off, he might have been able to stop Mary's wrongdoing. It's hard to imagine Mary, who had never been involved in school events, would show up for a send-off. The resolution left a lot to be desired. However, my father-in-law wasn't done yet. After our conversation, he woke up Mary and Kate to give them a piece of his mind. This lecture apparently went on until the early hours of the morning, leading them to call us before dawn as a form of retaliation.
How do you like being woken up? Because you snitched to Dad. Mom and I got an earful of nagging from him.
I'm too sleep deprived to do any housework, so you come here and make breakfast. It's only fair since you acted all self-righteous and told on us. What an incompetent daughter-in-law you are.
However, I had only answered the phone out of reflex to the ringing and was half asleep throughout their complaints, eventually falling back asleep, seemingly taking my mumbled responses seriously. Mary thought I was coming over to make breakfast and didn't prepare anything for my father-in-law. This led to him getting upset, wondering if his lecture hadn't been enough, and rushing to make breakfast himself. In her haste, she made extremely salty scrambled eggs, and my father-in-law apparently commented that a wife who can't even make proper eggs and only knows how to get others in trouble is useless, almost like declaring a divorce. My husband thinks that this incident has finally gotten to Mary, and she might quiet down for a while. I hope so. Given all the times Mary has caused trouble, I wonder if just the threat of divorce would be enough to calm her down. But in reality, as my husband predicted, there were no more sarcastic calls from Mary or Kate, and we had peaceful days until Emily returned from her school trip. She couldn't stop talking about her trip, and during dinner, I had to remind her to either eat or talk. She excitedly shared her experiences, with gestures and all, right up until bedtime. She had only a limited amount of pocket money for the trip, but still bought souvenirs for us. She even thought of her cousin who couldn't go. Emily had noticed her cousin's absence and asked why. The teacher, not revealing the true reason of unpaid fees, simply said she fell ill suddenly. Hearing this, Emily bought matching keychains in different colors for her. I told her that her cousin was feeling better and would be back at school. I believe sometimes it's okay to tell a kind lie for someone's sake. A few days later, my father-in-law called us for a talk. The revelation about the unpaid school trip fees led him to contact Kate's ex-husband. My father-in-law had been unaware of their divorce's reason. He apparently avoided the issue because he felt it was a matter between the couple. However, seeing the financial struggles of Kate and my niece, he reached out to see if the ex-husband could contribute even a little in child support. The truth he learned was far different. The divorce was due to Kate's terrible spending habits, which her ex-husband couldn't tolerate any longer. He had initially planned to take custody of my niece, thinking Kate was incapable of single parenting. However, she adamantly refused to let go of her daughter, so he gave up custody in exchange for the divorce. He was desperate to leave her. The ex-husband had been faithfully paying the agreed child support, including separate amounts for school fees. Learning that his daughter missed the trip due to unpaid fees was a devastating and infuriating revelation for him. My father-in-law, too, had been concerned about my niece's lack of school supplies and worn-out stationery, and had given money to Mary to buy new ones. But Mary squandered the money on outings with Kate. Kate also spent the child support from her ex-husband on herself, not on my niece. My father-in-law asked my niece how she managed at school without the necessary supplies. She replied that she was told to borrow from Emily. It all made sense to me then. For a while, I had noticed the contents of Emily's pencil case becoming sparse. She said it was because she and my niece were using them together, but maybe she was actually giving them to her cousin. Perhaps after being asked to borrow supplies so many times, she just started giving them away, like a pencil here and there. Hearing about the true nature of Mary and Kate from my niece, and learning about the misuse of child support and their refusal to let her participate in school events, made me realize it was not good for her education. Realizing that being around adults like Mary and Kate was also not good, my father-in-law, after confirming with Kate's ex-husband, supported the idea of fighting for custody. If one party is stubbornly resistant, such disputes can automatically lead to court. Kate resisted because she didn't want to lose the child support, resulting in a court case. The court judged that she was incapable of parenting, considering her income and lifestyle. After the divorce, Kate neither worked part-time nor used the child support and money from my father-in-law responsibly. The custody battle was quickly settled in court, and my niece was taken in by her father. He had moved back to his parents' home. She will now live a life free from neglect, with the support of her paternal grandparents. Following their quick loss in court, Kate and Mary showed up at my house.
You really went and did something unnecessary. Now you're going to have to give me my allowance.
It was a good source of income. Ever since you married my son, it's been one misfortune after another. You're a jinx.
They had invaded our home early in the morning, rummaging for valuables. I immediately called my father-in-law for help. He arrived, apologized to me and my husband, and took them away in his car. Later, finding themselves without any source of income, they tried shoplifting at a local supermarket and were caught and handed over to the police. They didn't want to ask us for help and couldn't reach my father-in-law at work, causing trouble for him at his job. Eventually, my father-in-law, fed up with their antics, divorced Mary. He left the house to them, choosing to live with us, as he had always been fond of Emily. Mary took as much as she could from the divorce settlement, but spent it all without thinking of the future. Even though they could shelter from the rain and wind, their electricity and gas were cut off, and eventually, even their water supply was shut off. When they ran out of cash even to buy food, she came begging to me, asking for forgiveness and pleading for my help, apologizing for everything they had done. "Let's all live together happily as a family," she says, but what does she mean by happily? Weren't they the ones who trampled on my efforts to live harmoniously? Don't they even think about earning their own money to buy food? I can't offer a place to live to those who won't even try to be independent, so I kicked them out of the house. They banged on the door for a while, but eventually, the police came due to a neighbor's call and gave them a warning. Having already been interrogated by the police once, they probably thought it'd be bad to get caught again and finally left. After that, they never came begging to us, but I heard they racked up a lot of debt from shady sources and didn't even try to work to pay it back. Their former house was plastered with demands for repayment, and at one point, loud angry voices could be heard, but now it's quiet, and I've heard neither Mary nor Kate have been seen. I don't know and don't want to know where they are or what they're doing. My niece has been taken in by her father and had to transfer schools. But she and Emily still keep in touch through letters and calls. They seem to enjoy their conversations. My husband and her father, now finding common ground, have been exchanging parenting tips through emails. They're even discussing taking the girls on a small trip together. I just hope for a brighter future for both my niece and Emily.
Take revenge on my wife for me.
These were the startling words in a letter I received from my dearly departed son. Just 13 days after his sudden passing, he had been living a happy, married life.
Take revenge on my wife for me.
Below the written words, there was an address I did not recognize. John, are you telling me to go to this place? As I pondered, tears stopped, but cold sweat broke out. I couldn't imagine my son, John, ever speaking of revenge. What drove him to this point? What could I possibly discover at this address? I had been shut inside my home since the funeral ended, but I quickly left my house. I was so absorbed that I even forgot to put on makeup. But that didn't matter. I wanted to fulfill my beloved son's wish. With a single-minded focus, I hurried to the address written in the letter. The place John specified in his letter was a rental storage facility, a bit away from our home. Among the rows of warehouses, I found the one with the number mentioned in the letter. I inserted the thin, small key attached to the letter into the lock and opened the door of the warehouse. The small room, about the size of 100 square feet max, was dimly lit and slightly musty, despite it being daytime. When I pressed the switch next to the door, the bare fluorescent light buzzed and lit up the interior. What is this? Instinctive fear took hold of me, and my entire body started trembling. My name is Susan Garcia. I am a 54-year-old part-time employee. I lost my beloved husband 20 years ago. He mentioned feeling slightly unwell and then passed away shortly after. It was so sudden, I still find it hard to believe. He wasn't seriously ill and always had regular health checkups. Yet, he left me and our son, John. Since my husband's death, it was just John and me. Back then, John was still in elementary school, struggling more than anyone with his father's sudden departure. My in-laws frequently visited to help with John. Responding to our feelings, it seemed like John was desperately trying to hide his loneliness from not having a father. Far from that, John often encouraged me when I became panicked. "Mom, it's okay, I'm here." His young voice still echoes in my ears to this day. After losing my husband, I started working part-time to raise John, trying to forget the sorrow with the busyness of daily life. He never said anything about me being frequently away from home due to my busy job. Despite being lonely himself, he never complained and continued to encourage me. I gradually overcame my grief, responding to John's support. During his high school years, John began working part-time to help with our finances. He worked while balancing his studies, not wanting to overburden me. He did well academically, often praised by teachers at parent-teacher conference. I am thankful every day for how well he grew up despite losing his father. After graduating high school, John immediately started working. He had good enough grades for any university, but probably considering me, he made his decision. Saying, "I'm tired of studying," he started working at a small local factory. Being naturally smart, John quickly learned the ropes and was well liked by everyone there. Despite the physical demands, he seemed fulfilled every day. About 6 months later, John got a girlfriend. Previously a homebody on his days off, he started going out almost every weekend. As a mom, I felt a bit lonely, but I was also relieved that my son at that age had found someone. Above all, John looked happy, and that made me glad. He had always been considerate of me, supporting me. I hope he thinks of his own happiness now. I watched over his relationship from a distance. When John turned 27, he decided to get married. His fiancée was a woman 2 years his senior named Sarah. When they got engaged, Sarah came along with John to meet me. She was a striking beauty with distinct features, a contrast to the rather plain John. I was surprised not only that John brought such a woman home, but also that they met at a social drinking event. I was surprised by this unknown side of my beloved son, but I didn't have a bad impression of Sarah. She worked in sales at a cosmetics company. Maybe it was her job, but she was a great conversationalist, and our meeting ended on a pleasant note. Soon after, they got married, and John moved out to live with Sarah.
Mom, are you sure you'll be okay alone? It's still within the county, but a bit far.
John worried about me until the last minute before moving. Sarah too seemed concerned about me living alone, and there was serious talk about us living together at one point. I appreciated their kindness, but I couldn't burden John any further. I politely declined their offer and celebrated their new life together. John still visited me often, but he started to lose weight, seemingly stressed from his job change. He chose a new job closer to Sarah's workplace, but it seemed to be tough on him. Unlike the small factory, the unfamiliar sales job was probably causing him stress and affecting his appetite. Haven't you lost weight? It's good to work hard, but it's serious if you ruin your health. Every time he came home, I would say that to John, but he would just reply, I'm fine, with no intention of changing jobs. I assumed his job was the only stressor, but it took me a while to realize there was more to it. Sarah, since he won't listen to me, could you talk to him? He's so stubborn. 3 years after John and Sarah got married, John turned 30. By that time, John's complexion had worsened, and he seemed to be at the brink of his physical limits. I repeatedly asked him, why don't you change jobs without overstraining yourself? But John stubbornly refused. It could be because of his marriage to Sarah that he feels he can't quit his job right now out of a sense of responsibility. Unable to bear it, I reached out to Sarah, asking her to persuade John to consider a job change. Sarah, visibly worried about John's declining health, tearfully apologized to me, and she was saying, it was my fault. It's not your fault, Sarah. John has always been a hard worker and tends to overdo things, but I think he'll listen more if it comes from you. But I was not gonna lie, I was somewhat irritated with Sarah. Despite my repeated requests to take care of John, she seemed to do nothing but only apologize. I couldn't blame her directly, so I could only watch as John continued to decline. Several days after contacting Sarah, I still hadn't heard anything from her. She should know how worried I am. I thought she should give me at least an update. Due to worrying about John, I find myself getting irritated over trivial things. Calming myself down, I decided to reach out and contact her myself. Hey, Sarah, have you talked to John about what we discussed? I asked cautiously. After a brief pause, an unbelievable response came from her. No, it wasn't words I heard on the phone. It was a click of the tongue. On the other end, Sarah definitely made that sound.
I'm sorry, Susan, but I'm also busy with work. I'm keeping a close eye on John's health. Aren't you being a bit overprotective? If he says he's okay, then he must be okay.
Sarah retorted with irritation. This tone was unlike the Sarah I knew. But it was undeniably her. Had she been pretending until now? Stunned into silence, I heard Sarah regain some composure.
Sorry, I'm just worried and getting frustrated too.
Despite her attempts to smooth things over, my guard against her didn't drop. For the first time, I sensed danger from Sarah. John might be in danger with her. An awful premonition raced through my mind, but with John himself saying nothing, I couldn't interfere in his affairs with Sarah. He was due to visit in a few days, so maybe I should ask him more directly then. Could he be troubled by something other than work? Some serious issue in his marriage? As Sarah pointed out, I might be a bit too overprotective. But if it's just a conversation when he comes to visit, that should be okay. Just to listen, after all. I managed to calm my racing heart and waited for John's visit. But my decision was a grave mistake, one I would regret for the rest of my life. It happened so suddenly.
Is this Mrs. Susan, John's mother?
The call from the police gripped my heart painfully. A dreadful feeling pierced me, and I nearly fainted. It can't be. Before the officer could even state their business, my mind raced with the worst scenarios. Part of me desperately denied it, yet somewhere there was also a feeling of resignation. I didn't want to hear any more. Fighting the urge to hang up, I nodded. As expected, they informed me of John's death. He had taken his own life.
Please, stay calm.
They kept saying, but I dropped the phone. I was in such shock, I forgot to even cry, standing dumbfounded. Why, John? I repeated his name over and over, as if broken. How much time had passed? The sound of the front door being forcefully knocked brought me back to reality. Concerned about the disconnected call, several police officers had come to check on me. I crawled to the door and opened it. Seeing the officers' sorrowful faces, I finally broke down and cried. A female officer accompanied them, embracing me as she cried along. This is real. John is gone. That's how I lost my beloved son. Overwhelmed with grief, I went through the funeral proceedings, but my memory of it is mostly a blur. I had even forgotten my anger towards Sarah, focusing solely on what needed to be done. There were many things I wanted to say, to talk about, but at that moment, I couldn't do any of it. The police, seeing my condition, decided to postpone their inquiry for a while. During that time, the police seemed to be questioning Sarah, but I doubted she would reveal anything. My intuition told me Sarah was the reason behind John's downfall. Why didn't I contact John right away? Why didn't I go to him immediately? Regrets flooded my heart, and I found myself unable to talk to anybody for a while. Then a letter arrived for me. My hands trembled as I saw the sender's. John's name. The handwriting was unmistakably his. John was supposed to have passed away 13 days ago. In a panic, I rushed back to my room and tore open the envelope. Tears naturally flowed as I clutched John's letter. It must have been written by him before his passing. Without a suicide note, the true cause was shrouded in darkness, and I was afraid to read the contents. However, this letter might reveal what happened to John. The cause that had been eating away at him for years. The letter, opened with trembling hands, was filled with words of gratitude towards me. My body shook uncontrollably, and sobs overcame me. Why couldn't I save John? Why? The same questions circled in my mind. As I tried to return the letter to the envelope, I noticed another piece of paper inside. "What's this?" I unfolded the letter and couldn't believe the words written on it.
Take revenge on my wife for me.
Below the words was an unfamiliar address. "John, are you telling me to go to this place?" The tears had stopped, but now cold sweat broke out. I couldn't imagine John ever speaking of revenge. He must have been driven to the edge. What could I find at this address? I had been cooped up at home since the funeral, but now I immediately left, forgetting even to put on makeup. But that didn't matter now. I wanted to honor my dear son's last wish. With that single-minded determination, I hurried to the address in John's letter. It led me to a rental storage facility not far from my home. Among the rows of warehouses, I found the one numbered in the letter. Inserting a thin, small key attached to the letter into the lock, I opened the warehouse door. The small room, about the size of 100 square feet max, was dimly lit and slightly musty, despite it being daytime. As I turned on the switch next to the door, the bare fluorescent light buzzed to life, illuminating the interior. "What is this?" The room, gradually brightening, revealed a desk covered with scattered photos. Around it, notes littered the floor, along with notebooks and empty plastic bottles. The scene was bizarre, hard to believe those were used by John. He was always organized and tidy, unlike this mess. A sense of fear instinctively gripped me, shaking my entire body. I'm about to see something I shouldn't. Facing the unsettling scene, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. When I finally looked at the photos on the desk, my eyes fixated on them. There was Sarah, not alone, but holding hands intimately with an unknown man. Looking at the other photos, each one captured those two together. Undoubtedly, they were proof of cheating. As I had suspected from the letter's words, Sarah was the cause of John's stress. There might have been some stress from work, but unquestionably, it was Sarah's actions that drove John to end his life. While trying to calm my trembling body, I frantically started going through the notes and notebooks. The notebook, in fine handwriting, detailed dates and times, what Sarah said to John, and how she treated him. February 13th at 2:30 p.m. She called me useless. February 23rd at 8:24 p.m. She hit me. The details were horrific, each line a scream from my heart. Why didn't I notice? Why didn't John tell me anything? The more I fought, the more whys filled my head. Alongside John's own writings, there were what seemed to be reports from a private investigator. The photos, too, were likely taken by someone he had hired to investigate Sarah's infidelity. Inside an envelope on the desk, I found several USB drives. I gathered them, along with the other evidence, into my bag and closed the warehouse door. I couldn't stay any longer. The place felt thick with John's resentment, attacking even me, his mother. John, I'm so sorry. Hatred for Sarah, who had transformed my son so drastically, solidified my resolve for revenge. Why did John have to suffer like this? Why didn't he seek help from anyone? I vowed to find the answers and avenge John's unfulfilled grievances. Back home, I went through the awful treatment and evidence of infidelity John had left behind. I panicked several times, feeling sick. The pain was unbearable. Regrets about not being able to do anything kept flooding in, and I couldn't stop the tears. Even if I avenged him, John wouldn't come back. But I couldn't stop now. I forced myself to think about what to do with the evidence. The police would soon come to inquire. Should I hand these over to them? No, that seems too lenient. John had taken his life, tormented by Sarah and her lover's betrayal. What should I do to ensure John rests in peace? Just then, the doorbell rang, signaling a visitor. Was it the police? Looking at the intercom camera, I saw a familiar face.
Hello, it's Johnson.
The young man on the camera was Johnson Smith. Johnson is John's friend since high school. I opened the door, and Johnson's face was the awkward face. I invited Johnson inside and led him to John's room. Johnson took out some sweets from his paper bag and gazed at John's photo. He prayed intently for a while, then turned back to me. His face had changed from earlier. It seemed like he had made some kind of resolution. Johnson adjusted his glasses with his left hand and reached into his pocket, pulling out a letter. Johnson took out a letter and handed it over to me. It was identical to the one I had received from John.
This letter is from John. I was informed that it has reached you as well.
Besides me, John had also sent a letter to Johnson, asking for revenge against Sarah. As a mother, I might still consider it, but involving someone else like Johnson in this matter is unthinkable. Though it pains me to go against John's wish, I had to convey just that. However, Johnson denied this, saying,
Even if we talk about revenge, I have no intention of breaking the law. I'm sure John wouldn't want that either.
Hearing Johnson say this made me realize something. What was I thinking? I had been swept away by the idea of revenge in the shock of losing John. Although I didn't have a clear plan, I feared what I might have done if I were alone. Perhaps John also thought of this, which is why he left a letter for Johnson too.
At the funeral, I handed it to you, but let me do it again.
Johnson continued, taking out a business card case from his pocket. The card he gave me had Johnson's name and his work details.
I couldn't talk to you in detail at that time and just handed you my business card rather abruptly.
Thinking back, I indeed received his business card at the funeral. He used to come over to our house several times since high school and even attended John's wedding party. Why he gave me the business card at this time, I remembered thinking, but I was too shocked to check it then. I hadn't paid attention to Johnson's words at that moment. He had definitely said,
Please contact me if you're in trouble.
The business card read Johnson Law Office. I recalled it. Johnson had pursued a career in law after graduating from high school. He had visited our home even after that, but all I knew was that he was working in New York. I never imagined that Johnson had become a lawyer. Accepting John's letter, Johnson had decided to seek revenge within the bounds of the law. Johnson, having lost a dear friend, had made this resolution and came to visit me.
My office is closed for a while,
he said, smiling for the first time. It was a nostalgic smile. Johnson wanted to help me and John as a friend. He didn't want to accept payment. Along with the letter, a substantial retainer fee arrived from John through registered mail with cash. But Johnson handed it all back to me.
I can't accept this. This is the least I can do, having been unable to help him. Please let me do this job as his friend.
Johnson said that. I hastily stopped him and decided to keep the money for the time being. Not only I but also Johnson had struggled with our inability to save John. So I should consider Johnson's feelings as well. I told Johnson about the contents of John's letter and the items I found in the storage. But let's take a break for now. You must be tired from the long journey. Shall we have some tea first? Johnson might be feeling the same urgency, but we had found a strong ally in each other. That was true for both of us. We needed to calm down first. Feeling this, I decided to welcome Johnson as my son's friend. As Johnson looked through the documents I handed him, he let out a deep sigh.
This is tough,
he said, a statement that could be interpreted as either a remark to me or a spontaneous utterance. The man Sarah was having an affair with was named Brian Taylor. According to the notes left by John, it seems that Brian, too, knew John. Brian had been threatening John repeatedly to break up with Sarah and had continued to harass him. Johnson, being knowledgeable in law, stated that Brian was as guilty as Sarah. Even if they denied the affair, there were photos and evidence left by John. This should be enough to build a strong case.
As a lawyer, I can't do much in court, but I do have the knowledge.
Holding the two people responsible for pushing John to the brink would mean the end of Johnson's role as a lawyer in this matter. That's because he has no intention of defending those two. Then the next step would be to organize the evidence John left behind and submit it to the police. Also, demanding a significant amount in damages from them would be part of the plan.
We will submit what John left to the police and bring those two to justice,
Johnson affirmed, as if convincing himself. He needed to say this to maintain his composure. I explained to Johnson that the police were scheduled to question me soon. With all this evidence, Sarah and Brian would face some punishment, no matter what they say. However, I desperately wanted to talk to Sarah directly. As John's mother, I felt it was my duty to confront her. I told Johnson that I wanted to talk to Sarah without revealing the existence of the evidence. Johnson readily agreed, saying, "Of course." Once Johnson submits the evidence to the police, there might be no more chance to talk to Sarah. The police could come to me at any time. The time left must be short. I decided to go to Sarah's house immediately. Sarah showed a look of confusion when I suddenly visited her without any prior communication. She must have thought I was still recovering from the shock of the funeral. She had shown her true nature over the phone before, which must have made her feel guilty. She must have been internally panicking about what I would say. I've heard everything from John. He is never coming back. But apologize right now. Apologize to John. Seeing Sarah leading a normal life even now, my patience reached its limit. I realized I was speaking before I knew it.
What are you talking about? Why should I apologize to John? What did I do?
Sarah's face froze for a moment in shock, and then she became hysterical. Her reaction told me she had been restless these past weeks. She has been constantly worried about when her committed sins would be exposed. She reacted sensitively to my words because she couldn't deceive me. She might be able to deceive the police during questioning since they don't know the truth, but she can't fool me. I've heard everything from John. Your affair with a man named Brian, all the terrible things you've done to John. It's all your fault. You took John away from me. I carefully chose my words and confronted Sarah. As expected, she became more agitated.
I don't know. I haven't done anything.
Sarah covered her ears with her hands and shook her head. Her mental state had already been shattered. My visit completely broke her. She collapsed on the spot, crying and repeating,
I'm sorry.
Why didn't I realize this sooner? If she was this weak, she might have changed her attitude towards John if I had been stronger. Thinking about how such the person had tormented John made me feel empty. I called Johnson right there and told him everything that had happened. Johnson chose to explain everything to the police right there. He seemed taken aback by how quickly everything was resolved, a bit bewildered. He had expected Sarah to resist more and never admit her guilt. However, the outcome was unexpectedly straightforward. It later became clear that Sarah had never considered that John would take his own life. She thought her harassment would lead John to initiate a divorce. Without evidence of the affair, she believed there was no need to pay alimony, and she intended to deny the affair altogether, claiming Brian was just a friend. It was a crazy plan, but both she and Brian believed it would work. John, out of love for Sarah, had not sued based on the evidence he had gathered. John was hoping for remorse and a severing of ties with Brian. He had been gathering evidence. But it seems that the realization dawned that this wish would not be fulfilled. He could have taken revenge himself, but John was so cornered that he couldn't make sound judgments. He couldn't bring himself to sue Sarah. Unaware of John's kindness, Sarah continued to push him to the edge. Following Johnson's call, the police arrived promptly, and Sarah, along with Taylor, was subject to another round of questioning. The evidence left by John soon exposed their crimes. Sarah, since then, hasn't been able to speak properly. Even after being found guilty and sent to a police hospital, she remains in a state of shock. This story became news, quickly spreading the crimes of Brian and Sarah across the nation. They were recognized as the cause of John's death. Johnson's efforts ensured a flawless claim for damages. Unsurprisingly, Brian lost his job. His crimes became known among his company and friends, leaving him completely isolated. even if he re-enters society, he will have to continue paying the alimony and remain a subject of rumors for his grave misdeeds. They committed such grave crimes. Sarah remains unwell, with no hope of recovery, constantly repeating, "I'm sorry," and unable to sleep without medication. The guilt of the two was revealed, and they faced justice according to the law. However, John will not return. Did we fulfill his last wish? After ensuring the conviction of the two individuals, Johnson decided to return to New York.
Thank you for everything. I don't know if we completely honored John's feelings, but we tried our best,
he said with a somber expression. Having a friend like you, John was fortunate. Thank you so much, I replied with deep gratitude. Johnson, slightly flustered, responded,
I just did what I could as his friend. Please, no need for such formalities.
With a smile, Johnson walked away. Without him, I might have lost my composure, driven by anger. He managed to stay calm and bring them to justice, hiding his own turmoil. Although Johnson wasn't looking at me anymore, I continued to watch his retreating figure for a while. Later, Johnson started a volunteer organization to help people with various legal troubles, providing relief without financial concerns. His inability to save John must have been incredibly frustrating. To this day, he continues this work alongside his job, helping many people. Just a few weeks ago, he came by to see me again. During that visit, he introduced me to his wife and their newborn child. Despite his busy schedule, he makes sure to visit a few times a year. John must be delighted. As for myself, I quit the part-time job I had since then. I felt compelled to do something only I could do. Despite not having the knowledge or power like Johnson. That's when I decided to volunteer in mental health care for families who have lost loved ones. I joined an organization founded by a psychiatrist living nearby and began facing various people and their struggles. Johnson's support saved me, helping me recover from the loss of John. Just like I was sinking in despair, I wanted to help others who felt the same way. This motivated me to start my volunteer work. As I continued, I realized this was where I belonged. It wasn't just about saving families engulfed in grief, but possibly preventing others from ending up like my son. Driven by this conviction, I grew closer to the psychiatrist who established the organization. I never planned for this. It made me feel guilty towards my late husband and John. Is it okay for me to be happy only myself? With this newfound acceptance, I cautiously began a new relationship. Even if I fall in love again in the future, I will never forget my husband or John. I intend to live my life carrying the memories and sentiments of both of them with me. So, is it all right for me to embrace happiness again?
Finally, no more baggage. Starting today, I'm living with my parents at my place.
As soon as my parents passed away, my husband, Matthew, who had our family home demolished, spat this out to me, who stood dumbfounded in front of where our home used to be. What are you talking about?
Have you lost your mind? Come to our house quickly with the inheritance.
I couldn't help but burst into laughter at his words. I see. So that's what this was about.
What? Why are you laughing?
Don't you guys know?
Know what?
Matthew, along with his parents, John and Elizabeth, looked at me, puzzled by my laughter. I then told the three of them the truth. My name is Michelle Naxon. I was born the eldest daughter to my parents, who were typical office workers. I have one brother. We were a very ordinary family. At 29, I married Matthew, and we had 2 kids. While working, I struggled with raising children, and before I knew it, I was already 55. My son, Sean, and daughter, Ava, had grown up and become respectable working adults. Now, they each live alone and seem to be struggling with their new jobs. It's time for me and my husband to slow down. It's been an ordinary life, but a happy one. I always thought we'd continue to age like this. But that ordinary life changed completely one winter's day. My father was suddenly taken from us in an accident. He was only 72. The whole family was engulfed in grief. It affected especially my mother, Susan, who was so depressed she couldn't eat. Mom, I feel you, but you have to eat. I kept telling her that.
I know, but I just don't have the appetite. I feel tightness in my chest.
Michael and I thought it was just her grief. But within half a month, she rapidly lost weight. Worried, I took her to the hospital. Cancer. I was shocked when the doctor diagnosed her. It was too advanced for surgery, and she had about a year left. I hadn't even begun to repay my parents for all they'd done for me. And now, just after losing my father, my mother too, I was more devastated than ever. But I couldn't afford to wallow in sorrow. Michael lived too far to help. So it was up to me. I immediately told Matthew that I wanted to live with my mother. She shouldn't be alone, both emotionally and physically, in her condition. But Matthew's reaction was not what I expected.
What? We just finished dealing with one funeral. And now I have to be bothered with your mother too?
He sighed in annoyance. Don't talk like that.
Can't you just drive her to the hospital? Why do we have to live with her?
She'll feel lonely. If it's too much, maybe I can just stay with her at her place for a while. I suggested that to him. Then Matthew snapped.
What? And who's gonna cook for me then?
I'll still come over to cook.
What about cleaning? Laundry? Who's going to take care of that?
I fell silent. I wanted to do everything I could, but I couldn't be in 2 places at once. If someone said that wanting to help and nurse my mother was just my selfishness, I couldn't argue back. I'm sure Mom would insist on not being a bother, saying everything should stay as it is. But I just really wanted to care for my mother no matter what.
Fine. But I'm not helping with anything.
Matthew said that reluctantly to me, who had fallen silent. He finally gave in, though grudgingly. Thank you, and I'm sorry. Though it was tough, at least he agreed to my wish. I replied to him while suppressing my anger at his attitude. Despite some initial difficulties, Matthew and I began living with my mom at my childhood home. We originally lived in a company house provided by Matthew's employer. Matthew was an only child. His father, John, particularly wanted us to live with them eventually, so there were no plans to buy our own home. Living in the company house was convenient for work and wasn't a big financial burden, costing about $300 a month in rent. But moving to my childhood home meant no more rent payments and more space. I thought moving in wasn't all bad for Matthew. He stayed true to his word and didn't help with anything, but for me, it was great to live with my mom. She seemed fine but often felt tired and spent a lot of time resting during the day. I prepared my mom's meals, fed her, and got her medication ready. Doing all this alone would have been impossible.
Thank you, Michelle. It's a big help having you here. I should thank Matthew too.
Mom often said that, expressing her gratitude towards us. She didn't know about Matthew's harsh words when we first moved in, so she was grateful to him too. One evening, after Mom had gone to bed, Matthew came home. While serving dinner, I spoke up about Mom's treatment. Then, Matthew glared at me and said, "Just don't say to ask me to help you. Whatever you say, I told you I'm not helping with anything," refusing even to listen. Anyone needs someone to talk to share their worries. I just wanted him to listen. But his attitude didn't change, not after a month, not even after 2. He constantly complained about living with my mom, acting like he was doing us a great favor. His behavior got worse every day. But I couldn't say anything to him. I was stressed, worrying about Mom, and trying to be considerate of Matthew. Then, as Mom's 1-year prognosis approached, her condition worsened rapidly, and she was hospitalized. 3 days later, she passed away. Though I had been preparing myself, it hit me hard. My brother Michael's family and my kids, Sean and Ava, came quickly to help. You'd expect your husband to be there for you at such times, but Matthew was in a corner laughing with his parents, John and Elizabeth, not helping with the funeral at all. Michael took over as the chief mourner, and we managed to prepare for the funeral. However, Matthew sat at the back of the family section, instead of with me, the bereaved family. "Matthew, I think you should sit in the bereaved family section." But he replied,
"No, I'm fine here. I'm not really a blood relative."
"But you're my husband." Elizabeth chimed in.
"He's a husband, yes, but not your mother's son. He's our son, an outsider."
"Right. Matthew is our son. You can sit in the bereaved section, Michelle."
John agreed, and their words left me speechless. It varies by region, but in the area where my in-laws and I live, it's customary for sons-in-law to sit in the bereaved family section. As expected, Matthew was nowhere to be seen in the family section at the funeral, leading to whispered speculations among distant relatives. Did they get divorced? I could hear them murmuring to each other. It was a talk that should not have happened if Matthew had just sat beside me. Despite my disappointment with Matthew, we managed to send Mom off properly. After the funeral, we returned to my childhood home with Michael's family, my kids, Matthew, and his parents. Thank you, John and Elizabeth, for coming during this busy time, I said to my in-laws while serving them tea. They laughed and replied,
Really, it's been tough. First your dad passed away, and now your mom. We've been hit hard with funeral expenses.
But at least that's over now.
I was stunned by their words. What did they mean by that? I couldn't believe they would say something like that. I forced a smile and excused myself from the room. Then, I overheard Matthew talking with his parents in the background.
It must have been hard for you, Matthew, living with someone who's not family.
Yeah, dealing with Michelle's whims was tough.
You shouldn't always give in to your wife. It's okay to say no if you don't like something. You're a married couple, after all.
I clenched my fists in frustration. The sound of their laughter and carefree conversation was unbearable, but this wasn't new. John and Elizabeth had always been insensitive and rude. When I married Matthew, Elizabeth had said, "Couldn't you find someone prettier? I can't expect much from the grandkids' looks now." John had added, "They say beauty bores after 3 days. With Michelle, you won't even get the chance to get bored in the first place." And Matthew just laughed along with them, saying that's funny. Such disrespectful behavior from them wasn't surprising anymore. I felt something snap inside me. Reflecting back, neither Matthew nor his parents had ever shown concern for me, not during my father's funeral, and not now. Instead, they mocked and belittled me. I felt guilty for forcing Matthew into this living situation, but I started questioning his behavior as a person. I had wanted to focus solely on my mother, yet I had been overly considerate of him. I realized there was no need for me to feel so guilty towards him, especially since he never stood by my side. Behind my growing anger, they were still laughing and chatting. If Michael's family or my kids had heard them, they would have been upset, but thankfully, they were in the kitchen. I was relieved that I was the only one who heard their conversation in the other room. As I thought about all this, I could still hear Elizabeth's voice continuing in the background.
Michelle.
Startled, I responded.
Can I take this?
Elizabeth approached, holding my mother's handbag. Confused, I stammered,
Your mom won't be needing this anymore, won't she? Matthew said I should take this. Maybe I should.
Elizabeth examined the bag like she was appraising it. It was so disrespectful, especially right after the funeral. I wrested the bag away from her. No, you can't.
Excuse me.
Her eyes flashed with anger. Not so much at losing the bag, but at my defiance against her. Still, I stood my ground. I'm not ready to sort through my mother's belongings yet. We'll divide them among the family later. Elizabeth turned bright red with rage.
What do you mean? Are you saying I'm not family?
You said at the funeral that even Matthew was not family to my mother. How come you're family when Matthew is not? I couldn't help but retort. Hearing this, Matthew and John also turned red.
What are you saying? Apologize to Mom.
How dare you say it like that? You're just a daughter-in-law.
The commotion attracted everyone from the other room.
I can't believe I'm called a stranger after sticking around for the funeral and burial, despite being busy. Dad, let's go home.
Elizabeth shouted at me in front of everyone and left our house. Strangely, Matthew, too, was angry and left with his parents.
What happened? Did you really call Elizabeth a stranger?
Everyone else, having only heard Elizabeth's side, asked me. Taken out of context, it must have sounded terrible. But I explained the situation to them. Not one person blamed me.
Both Grandma and Grandpa should be more considerate.
It's the same with Dad. Their family has always been like that.
The kids sided with me, but I couldn't forgive those three. Matthew didn't come home for a while after that. I didn't contact him either. I didn't think I should apologize, nor did I feel I could forgive him. But I knew things couldn't stay that way forever. Then, one day, Matthew came home. Welcome back. Seeing his face reignited my anger, but I suppressed it and greeted him. Then he said,
It's been tough, hasn't it?
His brusque words, but his attempt at showing concern, surprised me.
Why don't you take the kids and go on a trip? It'll be a good change of scenery.
Then he handed me travel vouchers. I was speechless. Tears started to flow. Maybe the kids had put him up to it. But I was happy he went along with it. I immediately contacted the kids to plan the trip.
Dad did.
That's unusual.
They were surprised by my proposal. So it seemed like it really was Matthew's gift. Maybe Dad feels bad about it. I said that while laughing, and I gratefully accepted the travel vouchers from Matthew. Well then, I'm off.
All right. Take your time. While you're at it, stay over at the kids' places?
What? I can't be gone that long.
It's fine. I'm gonna relax at my parents' place, so don't worry about me.
He replied me while sending me off. Ava happily welcomed the idea of my visit, so before the trip, I visited both Ava and Sean's homes. Since I couldn't visit them while caring for Mom, I helped out a bit by making some meals and freezing them.
Mom, you're supposed to be relaxing, not working. But thanks, this really helps.
They both said that, delighted to have my cooking at home. It was all thanks to Matthew's suggestion. And finally, the much-awaited beach resort vacation came. I spent a relaxing time at the beach with my kids. It seemed to heal the fatigue from caregiving and the sorrow of losing my parents. I ended up being away for nearly a week, but the kids returned to their homes with bright smiles.
It was fun. We should thank Dad once in a while.
True, once in a while. But I wonder if he's up to something.
Ava joked, laughing. Don't say that. Dad did think about us in his way. I replied her while laughing too. Thinking of sharing memories with Matthew and looking forward to a happy life ahead as a couple, I headed home. However, upon arriving home, I was shocked. What? The house. I looked around in disbelief. Although I was at the familiar place, the family home was gone. Suddenly, Matthew appeared out of nowhere. He was followed by John and Elizabeth. Seeing me standing there in shock, they all smirked and laughed. "Matthew, what's going on?" I demanded an explanation. With the same creepy smile as his parents, Matthew said,
"Finally, no more burden. From today, we're living with my parents."
"What are you talking about?" I replied coldly. He then said,
"Have you lost your mind? I've demolished your family home. Come to our place quickly with your inheritance."
Whatever you inherited is Matthew's now.
I realized then. The house's disappearance was Matthew's doing, and it was all for the inheritance. What a betrayal it was, especially after I had come home thinking about our future together. I was filled with frustration and sadness. But I wouldn't let Matthew have his way. Not a chance, I fought. I burst out laughing at the three smirking faces. Confused by my laughter, John and Matthew wore puzzled expressions.
"What? Why are you laughing?"
What a weird woman. Has she gone mad?
Elizabeth remarked, looking at me as if I was something bizarre. Facing the three, I said, "You guys don't know."
"What are you talking about?"
Matthew asked. "I didn't even inherit a single penny, so there's no inheritance." I laughed again after finishing my sentence. They must have mistaken the inheritance for wealth. Their misguided assumptions and actions were so ridiculous that I couldn't stop laughing.
"What do you mean? Explain yourself."
Matthew demanded. But I remained silent. I saw no need to explain anything to them. Before that, I won't live with anyone else. If you want to live together with your parents, feel free to do it yourself. Ignoring Matthew's question, I rejected his initial suggestion outright, causing my mother-in-law to burst into anger.
How can you help out at your parents' house but not with ours?
You know there were circumstances for that, right?
I moved in to help out, didn't I?
I told you that you didn't need to live with me, but you chose to move in because you didn't want to do housework, remember? Faced with my retorts, Matthew and Elizabeth bit their lips in frustration. "And how dare you demolish our family home without permission? There's a right and a wrong way to do things." I shouted at the three of them right there and then. And I left the scene. Behind me, I heard Matthew's voice calling, "Where are you going?" But I didn't look back. I had to find a place to sleep that night, and I really didn't want to see Matthew's face. I immediately consulted a lawyer. Demolishing a house can't be that easy. The house was still in my mother's name. I was wondering who did the demolition when an unbelievable truth came to light. Matthew and John had demolished it themselves. John, who worked in demolition, had called in favors from friends and even rented heavy machinery. They were thoroughly prepared. Moreover, they had given me a travel voucher just to get me out of the house. I was on the verge of tears, feeling pathetic for being deceived and furious at the same time. Is there any way to punish all three of them? I asked my lawyer through tears. He smiled kindly and said,
Matthew can be charged with property destruction for demolishing the house that was in your mother's name, and you can claim damages.
I nodded at his words. The lawyer immediately started the proceedings. A few days later, Matthew called me in a fury.
What's this notice of claim?
Oh, did it arrive? You destroyed our precious house. You need to compensate for it.
Compensate? I said we were moving into my family's home. We demolished a house nobody was going to live in. You should be thanking us, not asking for compensation. Get your inheritance and come back to our place.
Matthew said arrogantly. Thank you for demolishing it without permission. Don't make me laugh, and get your inheritance and come home. There's no inheritance because I didn't inherit anything. I shouted back over the phone. Matthew fell silent, not knowing how to respond. He was taken aback by my yelling, something I rarely do. The reason I laughed when the house was demolished was exactly this. I had a year to spend with my mother. Of course, we talked about inheritance. I told her, I don't need anything. Give it all to Michael. So, all the cash and assets went to my brother, Michael. He said that I should have the house. He lived far away and couldn't manage it. If I didn't live there, it could be rented out. That's why I was supposed to inherit the house. Anyway, either you and John restore our family home to its original state, or pay the amount stated in the claim.
That amount?
I'm considering a settlement, but if you can't pay, I'll file a report and sue you. I said firmly.
I didn't think you'd get so angry.
Of course I'd get angry. Matthew started making excuses. He seemed to think that as long as our family home was there, he couldn't live with his own parents. John, especially, had always wanted to live with us. He really liked Sean and wanted to live with him. Matthew was the one who refused to move in previously, citing it was difficult to commute. But unbeknownst to them, John and Elizabeth thought I was the one against it. They fought destroying my family home, and taking the inheritance would force me to move in with them. But now, knowing all this, I just couldn't forgive them.
So please, cut me some slack. I didn't mean any harm. Dad's sorry too.
If you're really sorry, then you'll agree to the settlement. I said this and hung up the phone. Matthew kept calling and texting, apologizing over and over. If you're really sorry, then just pay up. I pushed him away. I knew my childhood home couldn't be brought back, but this was the only way I could deal with my feelings. Afterward, I stayed at Ava's house. Michael's family and even my kids knew about everything. Despite his anger about our house being destroyed, Michael said, I won't interfere, but I'll help if you need it. Do what you think is best, Michelle. Everyone condemned Matthew's actions and supported me. A month passed without any compensation or damages paid. I didn't hear anything from Matthew during this time. I couldn't impose on Ava forever. I wanted to get the money and at least sort out a place for me to live. But contrary to my wishes, something unbelievable happened. It all started with a casual comment from Ava.
Hey, this apron looks like Grandma's.
Ava showed me her smartphone screen as she muttered this. Looking at the screen, My eyes widened in shock. It was a listing on a flea market app. The apron she pointed out was the one I had made for my mom, a one-of-a-kind item. What do you mean? This is Grandma's apron. I made it, so I know it.
What?
Ava quickly started checking other listings. The seller seemed to be new, with no transactions or ratings let. There were about 30 items listed, and to my shock, all belonged to my mother. I immediately realized it was Matthew's doing. He was the only one who could have taken these things from our demolished home. I called him right away. What's this about the app?
App.
Matthew replied, sounding annoyed. Thinking he was playing dumb, I was furious. Don't play dumb. You're selling Mom's stuff without permission. Take down those listings right now. But Matthew sounded panicked.
What? No, it's not me.
Who else could it be? I'm coming over to get everything back. I hung up and headed to my in-laws' house with Ava. Where are Mom's belongings? As soon as we arrived at my in-laws' house, I called out for Matthew. Confronting him right at the entrance, we faced each other.
I don't know anything about it.
Tell the truth, Dad.
Ava joined in, supporting me. Matthew was flustered. Just then, John and Elizabeth appeared, realizing we were there.
So, Ava, you're here.
Elizabeth smiled happily upon seeing Ava. But Ava, clearly angry, confronted her.
Grandma, tell Dad to tell the truth.
The truth.
It looks like Dad is selling the stuff Grandma left behind when she passed away recently.
Elizabeth burst out laughing at Ava's words. Matthew looked troubled and kept repeating, "It's really not me." Then Elizabeth said loudly,
Matthew's selling them. It can't be.
But
Because I'm the one selling them.
Hearing those words, I felt a chill run through me. Matthew must have known. He looked at Elizabeth with a face that screamed, "This is bad." Despite Ava's shocked expression, Elizabeth remained cheerfully oblivious. What do you mean?
It's a lot of work, you know, packing carefully, taking good photos.
Elizabeth talked about the app as if selling stolen items was a fun hobby. I had to restrain myself from lashing out.
Cancel the listings. Those aren't yours to sell.
Ava, red-faced and teary, pleaded with Elizabeth. But Elizabeth seemed annoyed.
What's the big deal? I found a fun hobby. I use what I can and sell the rest for a little extra cash. It's good for preventing dementia too. Now I'm the only grandma you have, Ava. You want me to stay healthy and live a long life, right?
Elizabeth said this nonchalantly. Despite my pleas for her to stop, she showed no signs of remorse. If talking won't work, then I had no choice but to take action. Let's go, Ava.
But
come on. I pulled her away, and we headed straight to the police station. I hadn't planned to report the house demolition, but theft was a different story. I explained everything to the police, including the unauthorized sale of my mom's belongings. They acted quickly, and the app suspended Elizabeth's account. The items wouldn't be sold anymore. Finally, some relief. On the way back from the police station, I called Matthew. I had your mom's account stopped. You knew about it, right? That makes you an accomplice.
No,
Also, I've filed a report with the police. Please cooperate with the investigation. Matthew became frantic at my words.
What? We're family, aren't we? Please withdraw it.
Family, I haven't seen a dime of the damages or compensation for our demolished house. There's no sign of remorse from you. Matthew was at a loss for words against my anger. But I wasn't heartless. Despite everything, I did have a history with Matthew. With a sigh, I continued. I'll wait for the money, but I won't forgive the theft. Everything must be returned. And John, he looked quite ill. Has he been to the doctor?
Huh?
Just passing the message. I'm not heartless, you know. With that, I hung up. I had just seen John. He was so thin, it was hard to believe it had only been a couple of months since we last met. He barely spoke, and his complexion was beyond pale, almost ghastly. It was obvious that he was not in good health. But they probably hadn't noticed. Elizabeth, trying to sell stolen goods nonchalantly, and Matthew, who only acted tough in front of me. That mother and son duo seemed to lack any concern for others. The next day, I received a call from John. I thought it might be a word of gratitude, but it turned out to be the complete opposite. The call was a reprimand. Why are you treating me like I'm sick? Planning to throw me in a hospital to get rid of me. I have to protect Elizabeth and Matthew from you. I'm not going to any hospital, he scolded me. His words showed no appreciation for my concern. Sorry for overstepping. I was just worried.
Unlike your parents, I'm not weak and short-lived. Don't make fun of me.
But a few days later, he did get sick and end up going to the hospital. The diagnosis was terminal cancer. Panicked, Matthew called me.
Dad's got terminal cancer. What am I going to do?
But I just snorted. That's not my problem. Remember what he said when I suggested going to the hospital. I'm not weak and short-lived like your parents. You're on your own.
How can you be so heartless?
Use heartless. Did you ever say anything kind to me when my mother was ill? Reflect on your actions. I hung up. As expected, John passed away not long after. I didn't shed a tear, remembering all the harsh words and deeds. After the funeral, John's will was found. Despite his claims of not being short-lived, he had made careful arrangements.
The house goes to my grandson, Sean. The rest of my assets are to be split between my wife and eldest son.
I was surprised to see Sean's name. John had always favored him, wanting him to live in the house, even after his death. For Sean, it was an unexpected inheritance. Disown it, you don't need that house. I told Sean, but he was actually pleased to inherit it. It brought him no financial benefit. But he seemed happy, so I didn't say anything else. Following John's will, Sean inherited the house. Elizabeth was happy and paid the inheritance tax. He's our heir, after all, she said. Well, she wasn't wrong about that. I felt a bit down, as if Sean had been taken away from me. But then something unbelievable happened.
Come to our house?
Upon receiving Matthew's call, I immediately headed to my in-laws' house. There, I saw Elizabeth and Matthew standing dumbfounded in front of the house, just like I had once. Heavy machinery and a truck bearing the demolition company's name, along with its workers, were on the property. Right before my eyes, the in-laws' house was being demolished. What's going on?
It's my house. I can do whatever I want with it, right?
Sean replied, appearing seemingly out of nowhere, looking satisfied as he watched the demolition.
Sean, what are you doing? Stop this immediately.
Even if I stop it now, it's not like we can live in it.
Sean, how could you do this?
Elizabeth and Matthew pleaded with him, crying. But Sean just laughed.
Did you forget what Grandpa and Dad did to Mom?
Sean.
And Grandma, did you ever apologize for the terrible things you did to her?
His smile vanished, replaced by a sharp glare directed at Elizabeth and Matthew. With his sharp gaze, the two of them fell to their knees. The heavy machinery continued to tear down the house amidst the loud noise. This sight finally brought me some relief. Later, Matthew paid the damages and compensation using the inherited assets. It seemed Sean had recovered the stolen items Elizabeth had taken from my mother, and they were safely returned to me. "You've got me and Ava," he reassured me, bringing tears of relief. Elizabeth and Matthew lost their house and didn't have any money left, so now they are back living in the company housing. Matthew had left the company housing with me and our kids before. But now he's returned with his mother, which has sparked a lot of rumors. A wife of one of Matthew's colleagues, who I'm on good terms with, contacted me about it, so I told her the whole story, without any lies or exaggerations. They'll probably have to live a cramped life in the company housing from now on, but it's their own doing. On top of that, with Matthew's retirement, the two of them have to be frugal to prepare for their future home. I think I'll occasionally bring this up as a topic of conversation with my friends, just to see how they are getting on. Meanwhile, I've been staying at Ava's place, but Sean is getting married. He plans to build a house. I was happy to hear that the land where the old house stood sold for a decent amount. It turns out that house was useful after all.
Mom, why don't you come live with us?
Sean kindly suggested. His future wife was also very welcoming. I couldn't stay with Ava forever, so I decided to take them up on their offer. I'm determined not to become a mother-in-law like Elizabeth, and look forward to living happily with my new family.
A phone call? As the ringtone of my smartphone sounded, I looked at the screen, and so it was from my dad. Hello, Dad, what's up?
Emily, have you already reached John's family home?
Not yet, but I just got off the train and missed the bus. Looks like I have to wait about 30 minutes for the next one.
Oh, that's good. What time is the next train heading back?
Heading back. In about 20 minutes.
Okay, got it. Then wait in the station lounge. Don't get on the bus. Just wait there until I come to pick you up.
That's impossible. I need to go help with the wake at Susan's place as soon as possible.
You don't need to go.
Why not? John is on a business trip in Italy. I have to go since I'm the only one here.
I'll explain everything once we meet up. Just don't go, all right?
Okay. I'll wait then. Why is Dad so frantic about calling me when I'm on my way to my deceased Mill's house? Despite my doubts, I decided to wait for my dad. My name is Emily Johnson. I've been married to John for 3 years. Currently, I work part-time at a bookstore close to the nearest station. My husband, John, works in the system development department of a multinational corporation. His company, expanding both domestically and internationally, focuses on developing and building IT systems, so he often travels abroad for half of the month. John's family home is in a rural area, and they continued farming until his father passed away. The first time I visited with John,
You know, since I'm alone, my cooking becomes pretty casual. All I eat is rice and pickles.
his mom, Susan, while laughing, served me rice and her homemade pickled cabbage. The delicious rice and superb pickles were a real treat. Susan, this is delicious. I can't think of any other words but delicious. I'd eat it every day. She seemed pleased to hear that.
Feel free to have seconds.
When leaving, she gave me pickles, ordered tea from Oregon, and rice from Idaho. It feels like it just happened yesterday. On the first day I met her, I felt we would build a good relationship. It takes about 2 hours by car to reach John's family home. It also takes about 2.5 hours by train and bus. This morning, I got a call from my sil, Sarah, about Susan's death.
Hello, Emily. Susan passed away a little while ago. The wake is tonight. Can you make it by 2 p.m.?
Yes, I understand. But John is currently overseas on a business trip. I'll try to contact him, but I'm not sure if he can return today or tomorrow.
Oh, is that so? That's fine. Just you come.
Really? Sarah seemed oddly happy about it. Can you give me the specific time and location when you are ready? I want to contact my parents.
Of course, though, and don't forget to bring a black apron.
Sure, I won't forget. Thanks, I'll be in touch later. After hanging up, I checked the time on my phone. It was 9 a.m. There's a 6-hour time difference with Italy, so it's 3 a.m. there. Is John asleep? But this can't be helped. I tried calling, but it went to voicemail after 7 rings. Susan passed away. The wake is tonight, U.S. time, and the funeral seems to be tomorrow. Can you make it back? I left a message on the voicemail, so now it's just waiting for a response. After that, I called my boss at the bookstore where I work to request some day off. I need to call my mom next. Hello, Mom?
Oh, Emily, are you off from the bookstore today?
Yeah, I took the day off. You see, this morning, I got a call that Susan passed away.
What? She was still young. What happened?
I just found out myself and don't know the details, but I'm getting ready to head there now.
That's so hard to believe. I'll let your dad know.
I only know that the wake is tonight. I'll call you back as soon as I have the time and place.
All right. John might not make it in time for tonight, so take care.
Okay, talk to you later. Now, I need to get my stiffs together. As I opened my closet, A black handbag in front of my morning clothes jumped into my eyes. This black handbag was given to me by John's mom when she visited our house 2 months ago.
It's good to have one nice item like this. You can use it for a long time,
she had said while handing me the bag, still in its box. Susan was always a gentle and calm speaker, and she taught me the bare minimum about the customs and relations of their old family, as I was not very familiar with them.
John and Emily, you're living in the city, so don't worry about country relationships. You have your own way of life in the city. Right. When in Rome, do as the Romans do,
she said with a smile. When John and I had been married for about half a year, we attended a relative's wedding in the city and ended up staying at his family home for a night. Since we rarely got the chance, we went shopping together in the shopping district and then went to a karaoke box where John's mom made her karaoke debut. She was so happy about it, smiling all the time.
Emily, in the 42 years since I married into the Johnson family, I've never had this much fun. Thank you.
Susan, really? I'm always happy to hang out, so come visit anytime.
Really? That makes me so happy. Maybe I'll come over again.
Absolutely. By the time we got married, John's father had already passed away, and John left home for college, while his brother moved out when he got a job. Until John's father passed away 3 years ago, Susan had hardly ever left their rural town.
I used to help with the fields and go to the rice paddies and check on our rental apartments and houses. The year would just fly by. So, after Dad passed away, I decided to stop farming and take it easy for a while,
she used to say in her usual calm and cheerful manner. Come to think of it, I've never seen Susan get angry. She was kind to everyone and never imposed her opinions on others. I want to be a grandma like her someday, I thought vaguely. I packed clothes for a few days and my morning attire into a suitcase and reached for the formal bag that Susan had given me. As I grabbed the handle and placed the bag on my lap, my sight seemed to blur. Although I hadn't shed any tears when I heard the news of her death, now they were streaming down my face. I must have been holding back my emotions, willing not to upset Susan. As precious memories with Susan flooded my mind, I hugged a bag and cried out loud. I never imagined saying goodbye so soon. We were supposed to go shopping and to karaoke next month, and she had promised to come stay with us for a while when the baby was born. When I found out I was pregnant last month, she was the happiest and congratulated me. Every time I picked up something that reminded me of Susan, all the memories from these past 3 years came rushing back. No, I can't get caught up in memories now. I need to get ready. I can't keep Sarah and the others waiting. I glanced at the clock. It was already 10:30 am. I need to hurry. As I stepped out of the house, I received a call from Sarah.
Emily, have you been able to reach John?
No, I'm sorry. There's a 6-hour time difference. So it's the early morning there. I couldn't get through.
Oh, I see. Well, that can't be helped. The wake is tonight at 7 p.m. and the funeral is tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Oh, all right. So, tonight at 7 p.m. and tomorrow at 11 a.m.
This service will be held at the church we always go to, so please tell your parents that, Emily.
Okay, got it. Truth be told, I was not very comfortable with my Sarah and Erica. John, being the youngest of 3 siblings, is 6 years younger than his older brother, Mike, and 3 years younger than his older sister, Erica. Mike is quiet and reserved, and John is somewhat similar. Erica, the eldest, is the type who says whatever is on her mind. During gatherings like Thanksgiving or New Year's, Erica would always start with, "Emily, still no baby," and Sarah would inevitably join in.
You really should have your first child before you turn 30.
Yes. After a year of marriage.
Really? Still no news?
Could you possibly be a sexless couple?
Maybe John has someone else on the side.
Wouldn't be surprising, right?
They would take turns throwing these snide remarks. During such times, Susan wouldn't raise her voice, but would gently admonish them.
Sarah, Erica, you're both parents, aren't you? You know it's not nice to say things that can hurt others. Since everyone comes here to gather, I want them to always have a good time.
Although I didn't interact much with Sarah and Erica normally, Susan and I actually saw each other almost every month. If we went visit her this month, she visited us following month.
Mom and Emily don't seem like a mill and deal.
Is that so?
Yay. It's more like a mother and daughter.
John often said that. Those were good times. Thinking this, 20 minutes passed as I waited at the station. My dad's taxi pulled up in front of me.
Get in. We need to talk about something important.
He said with a stern expression. What could he possibly need to talk about so urgently? What happened? Why did you suddenly say not to go?
Well, actually, I received a letter from Susan yesterday.
A letter from Susan to you, Dad?
Yeah, she wrote that she absolutely didn't want Emily to go to the Johnson house alone.
What does that mean?
You should read it yourself.
Oh, okay.
After reading it, you'll understand why I stopped you.
What do you mean? He handed me a white envelope, and I was shocked by its contents.
Dear Sir, thank you for the delicious sweets you sent the other day. I am writing this letter to make a rather forward request, and I hope you will forgive me for using this method. The request is that, should I pass away, please ensure that Emily never comes to our house alone. As you know, John often travels abroad and may not be able to return immediately upon my passing. Could you please make sure that she attends the funeral only with John? I am embarrassed to say this, but if the funeral is rushed before John returns, Mike and his wife, along with Erica, might try to get Emily to sign a property renunciation document. Without John's consent, the renunciation process shouldn't be happened. I am sorry for involving Emily in any inheritance dispute. I have left my will to a trusted friend regarding the property division. I apologize for making such a request through a letter. I pray for the health and happiness of you and your wife. Sincerely.
Just as I finished reading, my phone rang. It's John. Hello.
Emily, I listened to your voicemail.
Yeah.
My sisters, they're trying to finish the funeral before I get back, aren't they?
It seems so, probably.
Emily, you don't need to go today. I'll talk to Erica and Mike and ask them to reschedule.
Okay, that sounds good.
I can be back by tomorrow evening on the earliest flight.
It's better if we both attend together.
That's right. So just wait at home for me.
Okay, see you tomorrow. I felt relieved knowing John would be coming back.
Is John really able to get back tomorrow?
Yeah, it seems so.
Actually, this morning, by chance, I ended up driving Sarah and the others in this taxi. They didn't seem to realize it was me. Mike was trying to persuade them to postpone the funeral by a day. They were planning to get you to agree to property renunciation while John was still away.
What? Really? Just like Susan suspected.
Seems so. Apparently, Sarah's son recently crashed her car, and they're facing a lawsuit for several $100,000.
Wait, Sarah's car is a German luxury model, right? It should have insurance.
It was insured, but only for Sarah. Her son forgot to get a one-day insurance. With the car all banged up, she was furious about having to replace it.
So they were trying to get as much of the inheritance as they could. The next evening, John safely returned home. We were all able to attend Susan's funeral together, and the will revealed an equal division of $300,000 to each couple. Sarah looked uncomfortable. Mike, will the payment for the accident cover everything?
Thanks for worrying, Emily. We're still short about $100,000, but we'll manage. Not changing the insurance policy was our fault as parents.
If it's okay, you can use $100,000 from my share. As soon as I said this, everyone turned to look at me. Sarah quickly responded,
Really? Thank you.
But then her son, Michael, stepped forward and bowed.
I can't accept that.
Michael, Emily is kindly offering.
No, Mom. It's my responsibility for causing the accident.
How about I lend the money to Michael, and he can pay me back a little each month? When I suggested this, Michael gratefully accepted. If Emily is okay with that, I'd like to borrow it. I'm sorry. He promised to pay back $500 a month from his part-time job earnings. This seemed like something Susan would approve of.
Emily, you're too kind-hearted.
I almost felt like I could hear Susan's voice. Since then, Michael has been faithfully paying back the money each month. Sarah, warned by her son, stopped meddling in the matter. Time passed, and finally, the day came for me to give birth. John sent me off to the delivery room with a smile. If Susan were still here, she would have been with me, encouraging me. Thinking this, I entered the room. It took some time since it was my first childbirth, but a healthy baby girl was born.
Congratulations,
said the nurse, as I smiled at my crying baby. After a few days in the hospital, it was time to go home. John had been given some time off from work so we could cherish our time as a family. Soon, we'll visit Susan's grave with our daughter. I smiled, imagining Susan's joyful face at seeing the baby.